I'm a psychiatrist and an addictionologist. An addictionologist is a regular physician that goes back to school to train for either 1 to 3 years, and he studies the definitions, the treatments of addictions. Well, in that 1 to 3 years, we study causes, the treatments, and the different types of addictions.
So what causes addiction?
Well, as you know, medicine is an art, and we have several theories as to what causes addiction. And our main theory today is addiction is caused by genetics and environmental stressors.
Wow. So someone who has had a history of addiction in their family, are they more susceptible to addiction?
Yes, we know today that if the father was addicted, 1 out of every 4 children stands a great chance of addiction. Now, this is not guaranteed because sometimes addiction will skip generations.
What kind of environmental issues predispose me to taking up the game?
If the environmental issues are just about any stressor. There's one thing about people that are addicted: we must have instant gratification from our problems. So any problem could, that produces stress could cause an addiction if the predisposition is there.
So what can I do as a person who's in a family of alcoholics to prevent my kids from being alcoholics, if anything?
Truly, nothing can be done to prevent, but we can hedge on him not being an alcoholic, and mostly that's by education, and to let him see what the illness does, allow him to see some of the early warning signs and some of the behaviors that predispose us.
What are some of the early signs of addiction?
Well, one of the major early signs of addiction is the ability for a younger person, say we go to our first little party, we sneak off and steal 12 cans of beer. Well, you'll find that the kids that do not have a predisposition for alcoholism, they get drunk probably on a half a can of beer. But the person does have a predisposition for alcohol, they'll drink all 12 and wonder what's wrong with those people out there. We're having a good time here. That's a major sign. Another sign is, of course, it takes more alcohol to bring on drunkenness in a person that has a predisposition for alcohol dependency. And I think the third sign they have, what we call, is the ability to sway. A person that has a predisposition for alcohol, they are able to drink and just stand still and not sway, whereas a person without a predisposition, they sway from side to side very quickly.
We should probably, it would be great, because I think there are a lot of definitions about what an addict is. Mm-hmm. Your definition of an addict.
An addict, number one, like any and every illness, the major thing is loss of control. We have a lot of definition running around about it, but my major thing is loss of control. If you tell me that you're going to drink a couple of beers, but on a constant basis you drink 4, 5, 6, that's one of the major signs for me. Now, I could give you a definition that an addiction is a chronic, progressive, and fatal illness if untreated. But that to me are just words. My whole thing about any illness, like every other illness, it is the loss of control. If I have a common cold and I start coughing and I have a fever, I can't control my fever and I can't control my coughing on you. So that's an illness. Well, that's the same thing with alcohol dependency or any other dependencies. Loss of control.
A lot of people will try to kind of compartmentalize what you can be addicted to. Is it possible to be addicted to anything?
Yes. Anything that you lose control over, you can be addicted to.
Marijuana?
Oh, God, yes. One of the biggest addictions in life.
So people talk about marijuana, though, as if it's, all for medicinal purposes and those kinds of things. So they say, well, I'm not addicted. I take it because it helps me with my whatever, my nausea. So let's talk about the addiction to marijuana that seems to be really prevalent.
Yes. Not only that, but it's a great starter drug for our young folks. But an addiction to marijuana is simply like everything else, we lose control over its usage. And as you know, we alcoholics, we have a great capacity to rationalize and make the impossible possible. And we live in such a state of denial that if we tell a story 3 times, it's the truth, regardless of it. But addiction to marijuana is probably one of the biggest addictions that we have. Now, I need to say this for probably people in my generation that smoked marijuana. It was nowhere close to the potency of the marijuana we have today. I was talking with a child, and they told me something about popcorn marijuana. And of course, I acted as if I knew exactly what they're talking about. But I finally asked him, what was popcorn marijuana? He said, it's a form of hydro marijuana. And so I said, well, And then about an hour later, I asked him, what is hydro marijuana? Well, this is a marijuana that the chemists have learned to grow underwater that's probably 10 times stronger than the other marijuana that they have.
Wow. So our ability to produce even stronger drugs, we get progressively better as we get older.
Oh, we have great chemists now that are in the field because marijuana is such a cash crop. We have all kind of specialists that can grow it. They're even growing it in flavors now.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's scary. All right, so we've talked about kind of the things that cause addiction to some degree. Let's talk about some of the ways to treat addiction. What would you say are like 2 to 3, I think, most effective ways to treat addiction, approaches to treating addiction?
Well, in my case, and I've tried to preach this, is that in order to treat addiction, the whole family must be treated. This is not illness in isolation. Families have seen this illness develop over the years. And it gets so common and their behavior only changes gradually. So therefore, the family kind of accepts the behavior until one day something happens great and it's brought to focus. So number one, we have to treat the family. But to treat the person himself is, number one, they must be detoxed. There's a period of time that needs to be had where he's off of the chemical. We may have to give him another chemical to get him off of that one, but the chemical we give him will be very short acting and it'll come right out of the system. We have found that one-to-one talking is good to get you into treatment, but after you get to treatment, group is probably the best. There is no period of time on this illness. Once you're treated for the acuteness of it, treatment will probably go on for a lifetime. But in this type of treatment, it will be mostly support and fun and everything. But it's just no timelines, and we must treat, I think the family is very important in this.
So I'm a family member, and I'm listening in the audience to you say that, and I say, what do you mean? What do you mean treat the family? I didn't do drugs.
Well, when I say treat the family, what I'm really saying is the family needs to come and to be educated. The family needs to look at his abnormal behavior and not tell him he's crazy and what's wrong with you and you promise not to do that again. And we need to understand that a relapse is part of recovery. This is not a one-shot thing, because I know people to relapse and relapse. But as long as they can tell us what they learned from the relapse and are they getting better, then I think the relapse is very important. So when a person relapses, I don't want the family to get angry and kick him out. Because when a person is in the height of his addiction, this is when he needs family, friends, and support the most.
So give me some ideas as to what I might be going through in terms of the treatment as a family member.
As a family member, it's mostly education. So you can find out what is he doing? Why is he acting like this? Why you learn his keys, his triggers to relapse. You learn it's just a learning process. And you're taught to be supportive and caring. And of course, with any illness, supporting and caring is one of the major keys.
So is addiction curable, or do you just treat it over a lifetime?
Well, when you say curable...
Like there's someone, I've heard people, I've been to AA meetings where people say, I'm an addict, I'll always be an addict, that's who I am, even though they're in recovery. So I'm thinking, if I have a disease and I no longer have the disease, meaning it no longer manifests itself the same way in my life, then I'm cured. But with addicts, they sometimes say they're always an addict.
Well, the potential to go back to using is always there. But to define an addict, we'd have to take in all these different components. Now, I think that some components of the addiction is, quote, you can be cured. But other components of the addiction, we have to treat that on a regular basis.
So what are some of the success factors for getting over, if you will, or whatever the proper term is, an addiction? So I'm an addict, and I really am on a path, a commitment to living a different life, living a life of sobriety. What are some of the things that I should incorporate into my life?
Well, number one, we have to learn to sit and wait. We have to learn patience, because we cannot have that instant gratification at all times. Number two, we need to feel, one of the biggest things about addicts is that we're so full of guilt and shame. We have to do something to fight that. We need support from others is one of the major factors. We need to go to group, and we need to constantly be reinforced. We need some type of spirituality in our lives, because one of our major problems is that we thought we knew everything. We need to surrender all of this knowledge that we have to someone greater than ourselves. A lot of times the person will start using with the AA group, the collective knowledge of the group, and then they develop knowledge of their own that they can sit and take time with. When we first try to get a person, we see them sick and drunk. The first thing is, do not try to talk to them when they're drunk. Just protect them, keep them safe. Number two is, once they are clean and sober, invite them. Because if you attempt to force them, they will rebel. Number three, do not try to talk to an alcoholic about how bad he's drinking, because they can beat us on that one every time. But we talk about an alcoholic's behavior, and that's not you, and so on. So you can have people to prove it. The only other, that's getting them into the show. You can say you can't force anyone to get sober. Well, I like that old adage, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. But we can make him thirsty.